Why is weight loss so damn hard? All right, we're back with another video. I'm back at the park today, but on the other side, because there's people there, and I don't want to look like a fucking weirdo, although I am, but that's okay. All right, so today we're going to go over why is weight loss so damn hard, and this is a extremely loaded topic, which I'm not sure why I chose for today, but it just kind of popped in my head, so let's kind of go for it. And the goal with this one is to make things a little bit more simple, simplify things, make it, a bit more digestible with kind of the goal of, hopefully for any of you watching there's some kind of nuggets of information that will help kind of gain clarity, remove, maybe some of the myths and stuff like that, where you can kind of figure out how to apply some of these tips and tricks and whatnot, and maybe help with selecting an intervention that's right for you. So kind of without further ado, let's kind of get into it. So yeah, why is weight loss so damn hard? Why is it so hard to lose weight? Why is it so hard to maintain weight loss? So I want to first break down some of the more kind of genetic components that we don't have as much control of, but you'll start to kind of understand this kind of perfect shitstorm cascade of different variables, which start you'll start understanding why it's so damn hard. You start learning and you're like, oh, okay. And then you learn to, oh, okay. Oh, cool. The hard thing though is my goal with this is trying to not make it discouraging by highlight some of these, facts around it. But I don't know another way to, again, highlight and talk about this. And some of it is kind of discouraging, but the goal is to kind of try to help, find silver lining and use that as fuel to, again, figure out an intervention that's right for you. Because I do think it still is possible. Just because it's hard does not mean it's impossible. And that's everything in life, it just is what it is. Okay, so let's kind of get into some of these genetic components that make things tricky. So first off is going to be just individualized, appetite and food noise. This makes a huge difference when it comes to trying to control your calories and whatnot. And it's something that's extremely individualized and it can be extremely frustrating depending on, which bucket you kind of land in and talking to individuals that aren't in that same bucket as you, because people, they don't get it because, you're prisoner of your perspective. So you don't understand. I remember even have one of my clients where he's like, I don't understand why, their significant other had to go back for seconds or whatever. And I'm like, because he has a bigger appetite than you. But like, he couldn't understand it. I'm like, he's still hungry, So there are people that just have a bigger appetite, okay? So that's one thing. So bigger appetite. And then also food noise, okay? What's food noise? It's that noise in your head telling you to eat, not eat, whatever. There's some people where that noise is just extremely loud, while there's others that thing is so muted. I have a buddy that he would be that kind of quintessential forget to eat, which in my head I'm like, what do you mean you forgot to fucking eat? What does that even mean? I don't get it. And I'm sure all of you know those people out there. They're like, oh, I forgot to eat what? I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense. So those individuals, that food noise is not very loud. Or there's other people where it's like, God damn, if they have ho-hos in the pantry, that fucker's in their ear the whole goddamn day and night. Eat me, eat me, eat me. So appetite, food noise, again. And if you're dialed up on both those, big appetite, high food noise, it's got to be harder for you. Doesn't mean it's going to be impossible, but it's going to be harder for you. So those are probably the big ones when it comes to like intake and being able to control intake just based on, genetic variables and whatnot. And then on the output side, you do have people that have, we just label this broadly higher metabolism thing. And what does that mean? Because I personally haven't seen crazy amounts of literature of like having very different metabolism. So you take two twins. I haven't seen one where it's like one burns 1,000, one burns 4,000. So I don't think it's that big of a gap, but there is a difference. And it mainly comes to, some of it is this subconscious NEAT. So NEAT is an acronym, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So it's just called this subconscious activity. Some people move a lot more, whether it's hands when they're talking or just getting up and moving, blah, 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 blah. I've seen that time and time again. Like I've had clients that have a similar job or something like that, but one gets a lot more steps than the other. And it's like, why? And it's like, well, maybe they're just antsier, they're moving around more, they're peeing more, whatever, But again, these are things that you don't have all that much control of. That's why it's subconscious activity. And then some people just burn off more heat, which will just end up burning more calories throughout the day. And their body will adjust to that, meaning if they're in a surplus, they ate a surplus of calories for that day, their body's good at adjusting like heat regulation to get back to their balance point, to their set point, and things like that. So those are the main things from both the input side, again, going back to that kind of appetite, food noise, and then the output side of just subconscious activity, and then just, raising up core temperature or whatever to burn off some sort of calories, which we do not have control of those. Okay, so those are the two. Now, insert in having hyper-calorie dense foods. So this is everywhere, everywhere that we eat, any fast food, any restaurant, an overwhelming majority of what you're going to see on that menu is going to be hyper-calorie dense, highly palatable foods, okay? So what does that mean? It means that per volume, it has a ton of calories. So it makes it very, very easy to over-consume those foods. And then being hyper palatable essentially just means like everything from the taste to the texture, all this stuff is meant for you to really, really enjoy these foods. And this is where I'm taking this long breath, where it's like the weird food science and marketing, where it's got ahead of our own, evolution and biology, which makes it so hard. Like, I don't entirely blame Kellogg's or whoever the hell making these foods, from the packaging to the food to the taste to the crunch to the whatever, making it very hard not to want to be addicted to. But it does make it so much harder. And, and we are fighting this kind of biology and evolution of not that long ago. It was much harder to get to food, So we have these biological things, these set points and whatever in our body, so we don't famish, starve to death or whatever. But now, especially if you live in the United States or wherever, first world country, it does make it much freaking harder. Because essentially the level of self-control that you have to have now is immense. And if you're born and raised on some of these foods, it just makes it such an uphill battle. So that's the food stuff. Is, again, to kind of wrap it up, we have very tasty, relatively cheap foods that are very, very calorie dense, which makes it really, really easy to overconsume these calories. And then if you mix that in with a lot of food noise, a big appetite, you start to see where you're like, ooh, those chips are not stacked in your favor at all. All right. Now let's go to the output side too. Most of us are driving to work. We sit at a desk all day, and our lifestyles are not probably super conducive in terms of just overall activity, unless you have a bunch of animals and this and that, or if you work more of a blue collar job or something like that. But that's probably not the majority. So what does that mean? Activity is low, dude. It's low. I work with clients where I'm like, generally I'll do data collection as a start. We're just kind of auditing things, and it's like, just live your normal life. Let's start tracking steps and food and whatnot. It's like, you'll see people that are like 1,000 steps a day, which is insane to me, because that's like, I don't get that little of steps unless I'm like insanely sick. And if you land in that bucket, again, the amount of calories you burn is just so incredibly low that already, even if you're eating pretty healthy foods, it would be hard not to tip that scale into, again, putting yourself in a surplus just because your activity is so low. And remember, we have the two sides of the scale, and it does come down to input and output. So if your output is really, really low, then the only way to lose or maintain is your calories need to be very, very low. But then again, if you have that large appetite, and a loud food noise, that's going to be impossible. It's going to be impossible to adhere to long term. And this is why people end up failing. And this is why the statistics long term are staggering in terms of weight regain. Like, it's really bad. It's like 90% after a few years. It's crazy. So again, going back to the output side, you're living a sedentary lifestyle. You work a desk job or whatever. You haven't really found your thing when it comes to working out, activity, stuff like that. That's the perfect storm to just be on the struggle bus for pretty much your own freaking life. And this is why some of these GLP-1s, these Ozempics and things like that has been good for a lot of people, because it helps with that food noise, one part of the equation. And I'll probably make another video on that at some other point, but I don't want to get derailed here. But like I was saying in the beginning, you'll start seeing, as I'm shedding light on these things, you start understanding, okay. So I always like to give analogies with finance because it's very, very similar. You have an input and output of finance, and I don't think it's that weird that we don't only have a problem with weights, we have a problem with finances, and a lot of people are overweight and poor, and it's the same type of deal. We are surrounded and bombarded by things that's, marketers are trying to say, you should buy this or whatever, okay? And it's very, very hard to get away with it. And just with how much things cost and rent, blah, 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 it doesn't go very far. So it's the same equation. That's why there's so much irony in it. And this has helped, just being able to get educated on food stuff has actually helped with my finances as well, just because I'm aware of these some of these variables. So anyway, if we're trying to kind of long term adjust this, correct this, we got to work on both of those sides. And the first thing I always say, it is going to be tricky. Your knee-jerk response, your knee-jerk grab for food is probably not going to be, those healthier items. And more specifically, because I don't like this blanket healthy thing, is you want the opposite. So we're trying to stay away from very calorie-dense, non-voluminous foods. So we want the opposite of that: high volume, low calorie. Easiest way to do that is, having single or maybe two macronutrient foods. So meaning I have my proteins, I have my carbs, I have my fats. Very calorie dense foods have all three of them. And this is another thing, just kind of side tangent. I don't like when we try to scapegoat with one individual macronutrient, one individual food or something like that. It's carbs' fault, it's sugar's fault, it's fat. It's the sum of all these things, So this is why I always shake my head when people want to do it. And it's an easy argument because, yeah, sugar's part of it, sure, but it's not the only thing. Fat's part of it, but it's not the only thing. It's all of it. It's all of it, okay? And also it's individualized. For me, I'm not a huge sugar person, but I love fucking chips and burgers and fries and stuff like that. But if you look at all those foods, what are they high in? Both carbs and fats. All right, so kind of getting back to the point is, yes, we want to try to slowly build habits. This is hard, because you have to reframe, you have to rethink, you have to change a lot of these habits that you've been doing for years and years and decades, but trying to shift to, again, higher volume, lower calorie foods, because that's what's going to help us be able to eat and be satisfied, because again, higher volume. When I control for calories, like when I'm trying to lose weight or burn body fat or whatever, like I need to go very, very high volume because I am in the bucket of actually a very large appetite, and I'd probably say moderate to high food noise. I like food, but the way I counteract it is being so incredibly active. But I know not everyone has my lifestyle. So yes, so for me, I'm like, dude, 12,000 steps a day, 4 to 6 workouts a week, and that's just to maintain my weight. The hardest thing, and I'll be honest, if something tragic happened, I lose weight, it would be very, very hard. And you see that time and time again. That, again, is the quintessential guy that was an athlete in high school. He was burning a ton of calories, eating a bunch, but then he stopped doing all the activities, stopped doing the sports. Your appetite doesn't just instantly go down, so then they have problems with managing weight. All right, so we're 13 minutes in. I'm going to somewhat leave it at that. Oh, and then let's just touch on the output side. So obviously we went over, you want the opposite: higher volume, lower calorie dense items and stuff like that. And then yes, the activity side. You need to find your thing, man. You need to get active. I promise you, you need to. I don't like when people just want to do dietary interventions because I just don't think it's sustainable at all. At all. We need both sides. We need both sides of the continuum. We need to start getting active. And that's not just for weight loss, but just for health, dude. I can show you some scary statistics on like all-cause mortality rates and how high they are for individuals that aren't super active. And that is a bit of a fear-monger tactic, but if it gets you active, I'm actually okay with that. Get active, man. Find your thing. I don't care if it's going for walks with the family or getting back into a, pickleball rec league or this or that, but please find your stuff. Try. Reach out to trainers or coaches. Don't be afraid to fail. And what I fail, I mean, is trying to class back, that wasn't for me. Okay, cool. Like there's hundreds of different ways to get active. There's so many. You don't need to have just one. So that's the other thing. It's like, don't listen to coach. Oh, you need to be, no, dude, whatever moves your body, I'm totally cool with, especially if we're just talking about general kind of health and longevity, dude. We just need movement, and as much of it ideally as possible. Yes, you can tip the scale at some point, but I'm not too worried about most individuals doing that. So let's wrap this up. It's hard, especially if you live in the US, Canada, whatever, first world or whatever issues where we're surrounded and bombarded by tasty foods and marketing and things like that, and they want our money and they want this, okay? And I'm not trying to blame them, but it does make it incredibly hard. And then jobs. Most of us aren't super active, pretty damn sedentary. So we got to work on both of those, slowly dialing down the density of our foods and calories, and then slowly working on activity. Find your thing, find something that you love. I promise this will make it much, much easier. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up here because we're already 15 minutes in, but for all of you watching, appreciate you watching, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any other kind of topics that you want me to riff on, let me know below, and yeah, have a great day.